and I am chair.
I'm John McCardle, I'm the mayor.
Sorry, Jason Kistler, IT director.
Karen Johnson, city recorder.
Miranda Garrison, just member. Sarah Joe, city council.
That's recorder, community member.
Don Rhodes, city council. Kathy Martin Wallace, city council. Kate Swosler, city council.
Aaron Tyler, committee member. Shannon Core, city council.
Nathan Christensen, committee member.
Marilyn Morton, city council.
Alex Vazquez, committee member.
Nikki Ditchin, accounting manager.
Rob Moody, Finance Director and Budget Officer.
Kenna West, city manager, and although we do have counselors and citizen members, tonight you are all budget committee members. So you're all equal. And we get to hear everyone's voice as you bring it to our attention.
And
And
then,
I need to, make the disclosure, potential conflict of interest. My wife's part-time employee for the city.
so. Okay, first line of, is going to be the responses to the committee questions.
Make leading into those responses.
Because I can talk tonight, which is really exciting for me. So we, between the last budget committee meeting and this budget committee meeting, we've been taking questions from budget committee members. The simple ones, you may have seen them come back to you with answers. The more complex ones, Rob and I are going to answer tonight. And in reading those, it became clear that a real understanding of what Measure 5 and 50 has done to the city, just a lot of us just don't, well, I understand because I live it every day, but a lot of people just don't understand. And I know we have people who are listening to our budget committee. And so I want to try and give an example that I think will really help. So we're living our lives and it's in the 1990s. We have a mortgage and we have groceries and we have utilities and we have insurance and we have car payments. And it's about $1,000 a month. Now I'm making these numbers up, right? Because $1,000 a month. And I suppose in the 90s, that was pretty good, but $1,000 a month. Now our wages are $1,100 a month. So we can pay all of our expenses and we can put a little bit away in savings, which is great. Then, boom, new law. Your wages just went down by 10%. You now make $990, but your expenses are still $1,000. Your expenses didn't go down, just your wages. Thank you, Measure 5 and 50. So what do? Well, you start taking from your savings, right? But wait, there's more. New law. Now your wages, they only go up 3%. That's it, 3% per year, but inflation is unrestrained. It can go up 3%, 4%, 5%. Recently, it's been 7%. So your groceries, your utilities, they all cost more. But you only get, and they cost 4% more, 5% more, 7% more. You only get $990 plus 3% for a year. Compounded. So what do? Well, you take more money out of savings. We call that the contingency. Right? But wait, there's more, because now you're 10 years out. All this has been compounding. All of this has been happening. You've been dipping in your savings because, you know, you gotta pay for the mortgage and you gotta pay for the utilities and you gotta pay for the insurance and you gotta pay for the car payment. Savings is gone. No savings. No more than 3% per year on your wages. Inflation is at 5%. What do? Well, you start borrowing from different lenders. We call those interfund loans. But you still don't have any way to increase your wages. So you're just borrowing so that you can pay the mortgage and you can pay the groceries and you can pay the car insurance. Now we're a few years later, right? Say we're 15 years in, you got no savings. Say we're 20 years in, no savings. You're in debt. You still can't increase your wages by more than 3%. But wait, there's more. Because now you've been told we need to grow. You need to have all these people come in and grow because we need housing. So your brother and his 2 kids have moved in with you. Great, because we love our brother. And we love our niece and nephew. It's awesome. It costs you $200 more a month. Because you have to provide services for them, right? If you're the city, you're providing more cops, you're providing more parks, you got a library that you gotta gear up because you got more people. But your brother can only pay $50 a month. Because you know, it only goes up by 3% every year. So now you have increased expenses. You have no savings. You're in debt. And you can't increase your wages by more than 3%. And you've got extra people that you have to provide services for and care for. Welcome to the City of Independence in the year 2024.
Can I buy that set of knives from you?
So that is how the last almost 30 years of Measure 5 and 50 has affected the city. We have expenses that have gone up with inflation. We have a revenue stream that hasn't gone up because it is reduced to only 3%. And we have more people, we have more services, and we have done everything we can to not put in fees, everything we can to not put in a levy for the last 30 years. Here we are. There you go, sir.
Every city.
Oh, yeah.
And on that
Every
happy
city.
note.
Every city. It's not just
Yeah,
Independence.
no, it's not.
It is. It's every city. But we're a good example because we did everything right and it's done by us.
Is there any indication in the political climate that that's gonna change anytime soon?
Well, that is an interesting question. And if I may answer, sure.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. We're talking about it more. I'm the chair of the Finance and Taxation Policy Advisory Committee for the League of Oregon Cities. And the League of Oregon Cities took this as an organization-wide priority. What do we do? How do we help the cities? Does that mean adjusting Measure 5 and 50? Does that mean more money from the state? Does it mean changing income tax? We are looking at it. And I think for the first time in probably a decade, we are really taking it seriously. Because when you read the papers, it's not just us. You see Salem and you see all other cities struggling with this, right? Do we increase fees? Do we put out another levy? What do we do? So it's finally at a tipping point and there's definitely some talk and some movement going on. I don't know what it looks like, but we're talking.
And this will take years to
It,
implement.
it's still gonna take years. This is not gonna be a fix in the next session.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose it could be, but that would be living in my fantasy world.
Don't you think the city should own the fact, though, that we took on massive amount of debt, including this building we're in right now, including MyNet, including the hotel? I mean, to sit there with a straight face and say we had no control over our own spending puts a very bad taste in my mouth. I mean, we obviously had a lot of control in our spending, yet we continue to spend. Maybe if we would have taken into account Measure 5 and 50 that came into effect 30 years ago and maybe slowed down our spending, we wouldn't be in such a deficit.
Okay, I'm trying to unpack how to best answer that.
The debt, just for clarification, because I'm not trying to answer your question, but just for some who
Yeah.
don't understand the debt situation. So the debt on this building is shared 50-50 between urban renewal and the city. So the city, through the utility funds and the general fund, contribute 50% of the debt payments annually on this building. We also have outstanding debt with urban renewal that was issued to do the projects related to Indy Landing. And property taxes are paying back that debt on an annual basis. The MyNet debt was issued on behalf of MyNet because they can't issue debt on their own. So Independence and Monmouth both jointly issued debt for a period of years. MyNet was unable to make their debt payments, so the city of Independence and Monmouth made those debt payments and have accumulated those into respective notes payable that now MyNet has begun to pay back to the cities. MyNet annually transfers money to the cities of Independence and Monmouth now to make those debt payments. just to try and clarify.
Right.
I don't know necessarily how to address
Yeah, I can't really,
committee member Roden's question.
yeah, I don't know how to unpack that because you're asking for my opinion and I can give you the facts, which I think Rob just did. You know, the decisions at the time were based on the information at the time. And,
I'd say it's 2024, we're here as a budget committee to look at the current budget and what we can do moving forward. Things that happened in the past that we can't control are really in our purview at this point.
I think that was the whole Measure 5, Measure 50 they were talking about, so that they were
That
talking
is our
about
past.
the past and that. So are we talking about the past or not talking about the past?
so Measure 5 and 50 is a part of I'm sorry, Chair, may I answer? So Measure 5 and 50 is a very large component in what is happening with this city, with Salem, with all the cities across the state. And yeah, right now. And that has been compounded over the last, since it went in. And it was very clear that there wasn't an understanding. So I simplified it as much as I could to make it as easy to understand as possible. And again, read the papers. We're not the only ones.
The whole state of Oregon.
Welcome to the state of Oregon. Correct.
Is there any other questions?
So I have questions that were submitted by committee member Porter. And so I'm gonna try and answer these. The one question was, is the budget committee voting on whether or not to implement the $27 monthly utility fee? So in order to address that $27 fee individually, it would have to be in the form of an amendment to the proposed budget. So if somebody wanted to make a motion to amend the budget to either remove the fee, put the increase or decrease the fee, or adjust that some way, that would be done as a motion to amend the budget. Otherwise, the budget sits as proposed, and that $27 fee is just part of the revenue picture. Does that make sense? Second question, what are the implications of implementing a $20 fee for the first year and $17 the second, instead of the proposed $27 fee and $10 in the second? We ran that scenario. The long-term implications are really similar in terms of the impacts on the general fund. In fiscal year 24-25, the general fund would have a fund balance that is an ending fund balance estimated that's $200,000 less than what we projected under the $27. But it recovers over those same number of years, and it actually recovers at a slightly higher amount. The third question, I mentioned a couple of times that the fee was per customer. Did he mean per account? For example, I have 3 water accounts, 2 residential and 1 business, so I'm paying the fee 3 times each month question. It should have been customer. It should have been customer account. You're correct. Because you're right. We don't have any way necessarily of just charging 1 customer, even if they have multiple accounts. But I gotta say, this was put together kind of back a napkin, really rough. If this goes through, we would do that detail work, and we haven't even talked it over with the public works director yet about how to most fairly spread that, whether it's, number of sewer connections as opposed to number of utility accounts. We did a quick look at that, and they're not that different. But wanted to just be clear that there's still some refinement to be done on that. We're trying to get a number into the budget that would, make some sense. Those were those questions. I hope that helped. Right. There were questions posed by committee member Roden. So let me try and address these. Okay. The first question, do you believe the city, or do you think the city could make the museum a private, not-for-profit entity or a public-private venture? Those types of initiatives would have to come from outside the city. As a city, I don't believe we have the authority to establish a not-for-profit entity. So if we were to, hypothetically speaking, if we were to unfund the museum, for example, then someone else would have to come forward and form a not-for-profit if they so chose. We don't have the authority as a city to form a not-for-profit.
Rob, that would include them taking over the payments on the building.
Those terms would have to be worked out. I mean, right now, the city is responsible for those payments until it's paid off. Could the city do a sale with a leaseback with a new building owner? The city could recoup a lot of their investment. The museum could live on. Currently, it generates virtually no income. That's a potential option. I'm not a real estate expert, so I kind of am gonna back away from that one. I don't know how that would work. You know how much time our city grant writer or economic developers spend working on museum projects or funding requests? I don't, and we weren't able to kind of find an easy way to get that information. How many towns our size have an economic development department? I did a quick comparison, kind of a 4 up, 4 down in population size. And I came up out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Out of the 9 comparators, I came up with 7 either had an economic development department or had an economic development function that is handled through their community development department.
Didn't read the question fully. I think if you read the question fully, it would have made more sense.
Do you know how much time our city grant writer or economic developers spend working on, no, wait,
It says how many towns our size have an economic development department and a grant writer?
Oh,
and together?
we weren't able to determine who has a grant writer and who doesn't. I was able to go into the budgets of these comparators and find an economic development, so I apologize. I treated them as separate questions, that's my bad. How much time does Public Works spend on the museum? What percentage of our debt is due to the museum? So Public Works doesn't spend any time on the museum. The facilities department does the maintenance on the museum. We'd have to go back and schedule out by looking at their hours where they've spent their time. And to be honest, we didn't have a chance to do that.
Shouldn't we have done that on page? Page 97 of appendix 4. I mean, if we're going to be transparent with our budget and where we're dividing things up, and if facilities is maintaining the museum, it should be on there somewhere, right?
Facilities is on there.
But it's related to, just a second.
Yeah, I just didn't find it.
There's currently no allocation by facilities to the museum, you're correct. Because we don't have necessarily any data to make that allocation at this point.
It's
The second part of that, currently the outstanding balance on the museum loan is $415,000. The fifth question, I'll just tell you up front, I'm not able to answer. Why does the museum serve 6 school districts from out of town from only our citizen paid taxes? I don't have any insight into that policy decision. It says, can we demand this? Meaning having them pay for the ability to use our museum.
Policy decision.
Yeah, it's a policy decision. I assume we could if this body or the city council so chose. In regard to the city library and other costs, the library costs more money than finance, human resources, information technology, and economic development departments combined. questions are, do you think that is out of scale for a town our size? What percent of general fund do other cities spend on libraries? And then it says we need to cut costs dramatically at the library. How can we do this in this budget cycle? Again, on those same comparators, I found 3 other local jurisdictions that had libraries shown in their budget, and we were right in the middle of those. Molalla was 1.2 million annually per their budget. Monmouth was 806, and Sweet Home was 709. So my opinion is we're not really out of scale with other organizations. The next question is, we spend 86,940 on average per employee at the library. We spend about $186 for every borrower or user of the library services, I suppose, that walks into our library. How can we bring these costs down? What do other libraries spend per user? Was unable to find that information in their budget documents as to how many users they have. Different organizations slice and dice that information in a lot of different ways. And then another question, do you know why we are funding the light signal at 7th Street if development has ended? Can this wait until we are more financially stable? Gerald, can you address that, please?
So, like I said at the last meeting, there's money in the revenue line item, in the form of either a developer paying us to build the signal or the state giving us a grant to build the signal. It was a placeholder. We started out with the developer wanted to pay us to do it because they didn't want to get into doing the design and construction. They since backed away, but we're actively working on trying to get a grant with the state to cover that same amount. And so if we have the grant come online during the fiscal year, we can start working on it because the budget reflects we have revenue coming in and we're authorized to spend. If no revenue comes in, then the project won't start. And then we would do, like, let's say we weren't successful this next fiscal year in getting a grant, but there's a potential the next year, I would do the same thing. I'd put the 2.5 million in the revenue and the 2.5 million in the expenditure and hope that we get the grant. If we got the grant, then I could move forward with the project.
Thank you. The next question, in regard to the trolley, how much time will city staff use to try and secure funding for this project?
We don't track that data. It's just a part of what we do on a day-to-day basis for every department. We look for grants. We don't track that, unfortunately.
And then the rest of this email was comments and,
No further questions.
yeah, no further questions.
That's it?
That's it.
Then I also wanted to acknowledge the remarks to the mayor and city council by Mr. Kevin Cassidy. Is there any other questions? Okay. And we're going to go back to the special revenue fund. We're going to start off with Mr. Moody.
Actually, I'm gonna toss it over to Sean for, the Economic Development Loan Fund.
Are we starting with yours again?
No, I would.
Okay.
It wasn't me.
Okay.
Page 73.
Page 73, so, this one is a pretty straightforward fund. Really, everything you see there is essentially placeholders. As you see, last year, we put a placeholder in for $100,000 for if we were able to offer a loan to somebody in the revolving loan fund. Same thing with the $20,000 facade grant. Neither of those things appears to that it's going to happen this year, so there will be no projected expense year end. I'd like to put those same numbers in for this coming fiscal year. really for the same reason. That's, you know, the money's there for that purpose. I'd like to be able to utilize it if possible. I think that's all there is to say about it.
Yes, go ahead.
Sean, could you explain where those funds come from?
Yes, so the Economic Development Loan Fund originally came from a federal loan that helped fund the Central Plaza Shopping Center, construction of the Central Plaza Shopping Center. So it was federal money passed to the city, loaned to the folks who built and ran Central Plaza. And then essentially, as that loan was paid back, it became defederalized money that the city could essentially do whatever they wanted with. The city chose to put it into a revolving loan fund to be able to loan back out to other small businesses in the community to help continue growing our local economy. I don't know offhand how many outstanding loans we have, but we've got, I think at least,
It's 2 or 3.
yeah.
It's 2 or 3.
Any further questions? Okay. For tourism and events?
All right, so this is the fun and games, fund. So, looking at this, you'll actually see it's, not much fun and games for next year. One thing I wanted to point out, with, existing projected year end for this year, our contract services are projected to be higher this year. It was contracted with somebody to essentially take up some of the slack from Courtney being away on maternity leave for a good chunk of this fiscal year. That's why the contract services and professional services are projected to be higher this year. You'll see we did actually cut or choose not to fully expend our other programs and events line, just recognizing the challenges we're going into. We're trying to push things where we can. For next year, we cut down the professional services, just about to nothing. Similarly with advertising and marketing, that's typically, we have an Experience in the Oregon website, kind of develop content for that. Typically we work with Travel Salem, we partner with Travel Salem on familiarization and media tours. They'll bring travel writers to the area to see and write about things. We'll usually try to kick in some money to have them, spend some time at Independence, go to some restaurants and some places here in town and then write about it. So that's kind of we always try to leverage with partnerships where we can. You'll see in the narrative for this fund, we just mentioned that we actually are cutting one date off of the summer series this coming summer. It was a little bit of a hard fund to sort of talk about it and read about, because you've got money coming in and money going in 2 different fiscal years, because the fiscal year starts July 1st. So usually we're kind of doing all of our preparation in one fiscal year and then all of the actual activity in the next fiscal year. So this coming summer series, we've actually pulled the 7 days, so it's only gonna be a 6 day, 6 Fridays for the summer series. That's gonna save us about $15,000. And so that's reflected in the summer series events line. The other programs and events also, you can see we cut that significantly. That for next year, really what we're looking for is just to try to support some small scale events that we could scatter throughout the year to try to bring people to the community. Things like Touch a Truck, maybe we can partner with IDA to continue to grow the Hop Festival, the food for opportunities like that. I think the other thing I would mention is in the narrative, it actually said we were eliminating the glow light event during the holidays as well. We actually were looking at doing one or the other, chopping a date off the summer series or eliminating glow. You'll see that the winter events line, it actually does have $12,500 in there. $2,500 of that is projected in sponsorships. We had local folks kick in to buy 2 additional light displays this fiscal year. We're hoping to actually do better than that next year. But then the rest of that would be the storage, installation, maintenance, and dismantling of the glow light display. And we basically decided to keep glow because we were weighing one really good day, Good Friday in the summertime versus trying to bring people to the downtown for an entire month during a very slow time of year. And so that was why we chose to keep glow in the budget. I think that is the summary, but I'm happy to answer questions.
So just real quick, that first bullet under expenditure highlights is a typo. That should have been stated. We'll get rid of that in the next draft, sorry.
Question. On the transfers in the $125,756, that's coming from general fund
Yes,
to this fund. So I think, did they finalize their budget for Independence Days?
yes.
Because I think there was some stuff in there that could have been revised. So can we still do that?
So I may have misspoke. I believe they've finalized that budget. They gave us the numbers to put into
But if
here.
there just isn't enough money, because I mean, we don't have any money. So, and I brought that up at one of the meetings and I said, you're asking for money, and they said, no, we're self-sustaining, we don't need any money. And so I think there was miscommunication where they think that the coffers are full maybe.
Well, yeah, the Independence Day's budget that was brought to us was 193,100 expenditures and 193,100 revenue. The revenue amount up above of the 268,100 was the result of an internal discussion where we increased that amount. Again, this is looking at 4th of July, 2025. So we increased that amount by $75,000, anticipating and allowing some flexibility to increase potentially gate fees or to attract additional sponsors. So we increased that to try and give ourselves some room to chase some other things there. The Indy Days budget that they gave us was balanced, right? Revenues and expenditures. The problem is at those amounts, it doesn't cover all of the costs in this fund of other folks that support either directly or indirectly that function. Okay, so the team from finance that works down there 4th of July, the public
Please.
works folks, all of that doesn't get paid for by that $193,100. The transfer from the general fund isn't purely to cover Indy Days. It was to balance this fund in total, because we couldn't balance it otherwise without cutting large chunks of something.
Well, I think Independence Days was part of it because they were so much higher.
It's a part of it, but it's not the whole. The cost of, where did I just come up with that? The cost of the city's additional support to Indy Days last year was $38,000. That was additional personnel costs.
I have a question on that. So if there was a raise in fees to the public to come down and see the fireworks, if there was an increase in the amount of sponsorship, would that decrease the input from the general fund?
Not at this point. Because that transfer was in addition to increasing those revenues for Indy Days, again, just to get the fund balance.
So even if they do bring in more funds, they still need more money because.
Correct.
Interesting.
Sean, does the lodging tax include Airbnbs?
Don had a question first.
She can go first. It's fine.
Does the lodging tax include Airbnb taxes?
Yes, and I guess I could comment on that briefly. We just went through a process in the finance department to identify some additional Airbnbs operating in Independence that we aren't currently collecting taxes from. So we're following up on those. It's not gonna be a significant amount. I mean, even if they were full every day, every year, it's still small, it's marginal.
But there's no incentive for them to report themselves to you.
That's correct.
Right, because there's no, yeah.
They will have to report.
One other question, if the hometown fireworks day was eliminated, would that have an effect on the budget?
Sure, because we would not have to incur those expenses.
Don, did you?
Yeah, my question, I have a couple. So one is on page 75 and it's under line item 45200.
Louder, please.
What?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
It's on page 75 under resources and or sources, and it's under 45200 donations under designated. We went from having around $40,000 money, and now we're at zero. Why is that? What happened to the donation revenue?
So I don't know what the 22-23 revenue was, that predates me. When I noticed we budgeted $30,000, but then we didn't get it, so
I can explain that.
please.
So that is actually how we used to track summer series revenue. And then you'll see down to 47,314, we created a summer series revenue line.
Okay.
And so that's just cleaning up, because it was always a little confusing that, yeah, it's revenue, sponsors, vendors, donations, all of that, I think there.
So then my other comment would be kind of following up on what Counselor Martin was saying. If we can't do anything for this year by raising fees for people going down to the parks, maybe we should consider doing it this year to save next year's summer series. Because I had no idea that it was $15,000 to operate a Friday night event. And if we do that for free, so not only do we do that for free, we are competing with local businesses. They're essentially dead on the nights that we're doing Friday night movies in the park or music in the park, and it's costing us $15,000, and we're just letting people walk in. Why would we do that?
Yeah, I can, so. A couple of things. First off, the 15,000 is actually for Thursday and Friday nights. So we do movie night on Thursday night, we do Friday night we do concerts on Friday night. Movie nights are obviously cheaper, but we still have, movies, we have to go through a licensed, the rights, essentially a company that sells, they can legally sell the right, give us the rights to show the movie. That movie, the movie's gonna cost around $650. We need a sound person, we need somebody there to set up, to take down, so that there's some expense there. We usually hire security as well. And then Friday is still a big night, but there's bands, it's the sound, it's the setup, the takedown. There is a lot of that there. That said, we do, it's a suggested donation to get in, so it's not just, it is free. And we do say it is free event because that's the way it's been from the beginning. That said, we usually collect around $1,500 to $2,000 in donations for each concert night. So we do have revenue coming in for that.
How many people usually show up to those concert nights?
This last year, our least attended concert was around 2,000.
Right. So that would be, if we charged $10, we may get less people down in the park, but that would put more people in local businesses downtown. They could still hear the music, but they would be at the arena.
So if I can, I would also argue with you a little bit about businesses being dead, because I think if you go downtown and you walk around in the business, we talk to them after our Friday concerts pretty much every summer. They actually made that after each Friday because we want to see how they are affected. And we are hearing very positive things from the downtown restaurants, essentially saying we're slammed leading up to the concert and then we're slammed after the concerts. So, essentially bigger night than it normally would be, on those concerts, but there's so many people that are coming to town.
Yeah, I own one of the downtown businesses, and having the concert series doubles our income Friday nights. It's good. Yep.
Question. On the lodging tax, 200,000 is what you're thinking is gonna come in. Is that low, or is that like, how's the hotel doing? Cause it just seems like a really low number. I thought this was gonna be a huge
So-
moneymaker.
The actual revenue information for the hotel is proprietary, but we based our estimates on an estimate of nightly room rates and occupancy rates. And we believe that is pretty close to what we're going to collect this year.
Why is it proprietary? Don't we own the debt for that?
No.
We can't share their private business income information.
We own no debt on them.
We carry no debt on the hotel,
It was
committee member.
the SDC waiver, the $2 million.
We carry absolutely no, there's no debt. There's no debt. They're a completely separate business, just like the arena and just like Golden Hawk. They're a completely separate business. We don't own their building. We don't, there's no debt.
Okay, any further questions?
One just, and I'm sure it's just misunderstanding on my part. On this same fund, the estimated year end for 23-24 says $252,944. That's the very first figure under the estimated year end 2023-24. But the proposed beginning balance for 24-25 is significantly less than that.
So the estimated, that's the beginning balance for the year ended 23-24. If you follow that all the way to the bottom, at the bottom of that same column on the next page, the ending balance is only 28,494 because we spent far more than we brought in.
Okay.
I do have a question. Have you guys adjusted, like, do you think there's gonna be a change in Salem's not doing their movie or concerts to more attendance here?
Or for summer series.
Yeah, summer series.
I mean, we are essentially we're sort of doing it as normal. I would say last year we had to bring in additional porta potties and do
Okay.
things like that. We are planning to do that again this year.
It's being adjudicated tonight in their budget committee.
So just to maybe an idea, and I know that this is not something we can decide here, but the idea of charging for the City of Independence events, perhaps it could be for residents of Independence, we continue to get in free, but maybe start charging for visitors from other cities. And like, you know, if you have an ID or a water bill where we're paying an extra $27, you get in free. Just as an idea.
We did see a big influx of people when Salem eliminated their fireworks show.
It does happen in other cities. I think it's a great idea to think about it. The Dallas Aquatic Center charges more for people, independents, to go to the Dallas Aquatic Center. It just makes sense that we look into something like that as well.
And for
It's
4th of July,
clearly an option.
people are definitely gonna come for 4th of July from out of town. Whether there's a small fee or not. So just
But when
an
our
idea maybe for the
population
council members
swells
in
to
the-
3 times or 4 times what it normally is, it's obviously coming in from our town. If I was going to if I could make my wishes come true, I would eliminate the hometown fireworks night, and I would also consider eliminating the winter events, because we have some locally produced winter events such as the Santa Train and some other things that happen around the holiday season with different nonprofit groups that are operating in the community. And perhaps that would be a better way to focus on those.
So my response would be, just from a procedural standpoint, is when we get to the point where the committee is dialoguing, is that a word?
Yes.
Dialoguing?
I believe that's a word, yes.
I don't know if it's used properly, but that's.
Okay, I'm making it up. When y'all get to dialoguing, you could present that as a motion to amend the budget. That's the appropriate kind of procedural way to handle it.
Council Warren, when you say eliminate the hometown days fireworks, you mean the entire day?
I mean, the show in the evening, we
The cost
still
of the
have,
fireworks, that's it then.
right, we still have the things going on in the park because those have a certain amount of attraction, and we make a contract with the vendors. And are we having a carnival back this year or not, or do we know?
You know, honestly, that's been the biggest challenge is the carnival company we used to work with went out of business in COVID. We had to
Okay.
deal with like.
So I know from having seen previous budgets and sitting on the Independence Days Commission when it was a private organization instead of a city commission, that it's about half the price of fireworks for that one extra 20-minute show. And it may not seem significant, but if we can save $15,000 or $20,000 eliminating that, it might be worth considering.
If I can, I would just add, I know the vendors, you know, part of why they come is because they know there's gonna be a lot of people there and the fireworks bring a lot of people. So I think if you were sort of weighing, either if you were gonna look at doing that, if you were to weigh just the fireworks versus like the entire day, because the vendors may not want to be there, if there's not gonna be fireworks.
I've got that. I've been a vendor at the park before and I know those logistics. Is Independence Day's 3 days or 4 days long this year?
3 days.
How many? Three.
And just, that's kind of I mean, we're not arguing this now, but Independence Hometown Night is pretty special for Independence to have Independence Hometown Night. It is the one time where people from outside our community don't know we're gonna have like a little secret fireworks show. And all of us get down there and we're family and we're people of this community. It's an important event. I appreciate your input on this.
I've worked downtown, which I always do, and the hometown show is pretty special. It really is like, it's a high school reunion, it's college reunion night, it's people have been coming for decades celebrating each other, and they all live here, so.
And I definitely get that. I also know it's not that old. It hasn't been going on for that long, but if we're going to be brutal and making cuts, sometimes it calls for brutality.
Okay, we'll take it up, in a later discussion in the meeting. Right now, we're gonna go to the grant fund.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the grants fund begins on page 78. And this fund was established to basically have a central place where we could record the grant monies coming in and how they were being spent. It's really an accounting convenience kind of thing, instead of having these things spread all over all the funds. We haven't been perfect at that. You'll see that we still have some grants going into certain funds, but we're better than we were. So a couple of things of note. In the revenues section or in the sources section, you'll see $1,505,000. That's ARPA money that has already been received. However, the way the city accounts for those funds is we don't recognize the revenue until we spend it. It's an accounting convention. It's obnoxiously confusing. I'll give you that. But I don't want you to think that we're gonna receive another $1.5 million of ARPA funds. We already have it in the bank. We're just going to recognize it as revenue. And then the offset to that is actually on the next page towards the bottom, where you'll see 500,000 for capital expense in the transportation grouping and $1 million in the water operations grouping. That's where we're spending or planning to spend that ARPA money, and that is the bulk of what we have left. We have I filed the ARPA report yesterday, and we actually have something less than that, but that budget amount will allow us to cover those costs. The philosophy that we've adopted with this budget is that we're only budgeting those grants that we know we have. If we are lucky enough to obtain another grant during the year, we will budget that when we receive acknowledgement or when we acknowledge that we've been awarded. And we'll bring those back to you or back to the council through a supplemental process. That's just, it's the easiest, least confusing way to handle these things. So you'll see the $30,000 in investment income. You'll also see $5,000 down under police. That's for the bulletproof vest program that has already been awarded for 24-25. Under the administration grouping there, we've got 74,700. That's the allocation for the grant writer for the work that he does in support of kind of general grants that are flowing through this fund.
Rob, where are you? What?
Oh, I'm sorry, page 78. I'm in the far right-hand column of page 78, about halfway down. Okay, sorry about that. I should do a better job of helping you follow along from home. Are there any questions about the grants fund? Great, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Next section is the facilities, vehicle and equipment replacement fund. That will be Mr. Fisher, and that's on page 80.
So this fund was, set up to handle all of the facility buildings that are in the general fund category. Facilities, group that maintains this building, the museum and the library. They don't maintain any public works buildings. Those are in a separate fund and handled by other staff. The main things that I wanted to point out in this year's budget, change that probably popped out is in, line item 63140 engineering. There's a $25,000 structural analysis of the old water tower. It's on the other side of Public Works. It hasn't been looked at in a long time, and the recommendation was to have somebody do a structural analysis to see what condition that tower is in. So we put that in the budget. Down in the capital replacements. Capital expense. There's a couple of things in there. There's a new police department vehicle. Talk about that. Covers the cost of the new vehicle and the wiring, and outfitting of that vehicle. There's also a budget number in there for a lift to do electrical work on the building. Right now, we're either having to contract that out or rent the equipment, and sometimes it's expensive and not always available. So we have 2 staff members who have limited electrical licenses that can help facilities, and so the purchase of this lift would allow us to do some more house import, like changing out light bulbs and other things. The library has a very high ceiling, and it's difficult to get to, so this stuff is in there. Any questions on facilities?
So you said that facilities maintains the library and museum.
Library, museum, and ICC.
And does this fund the repairs on line item 61120, does that cover the anticipated costs of the roof that needs to be replaced?
So, I'll just run down real quick. I won't give you the dollar amounts of these, but for ICC, it handles electrical and lighting, plumbing, HVAC, roofs and downspouts, the AEDs, painting and drywall, space saver, sewer pumps, other categories, and we also have a $15,000 ICC elevator rupture test that's required this upcoming year. The library has an item in there for bus shelter repairs. We have had some vandalism to that bus shelter, and the city is responsible for the payments.
But I'm not sure you answered the question. Is the anticipated roof repair in here?
Okay.
Is the anticipated roof replacement on the library in this budget?
No.
And is that anticipated to need to happen this year?
What roof replacement at the library?
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Museum.
Okay, so
Museum.
what is it, the museum that needs, okay, I'm sorry. Museum.
So the library had a roof repair done 2 years ago. And the museum had repairs done to it 2 years ago.
So neither one needs to be replaced.
Beginning of last summer.
I must be.
So there's nothing in their plan for a replacement.
Can you remind me, what's the vehicle replacement schedule for the police department, and can we go a year without spending 50 grand?
Yeah, our replacement is to have 1 car a year. They rotate all the way down because we have our older cars issued to sergeants who are on call, they take them home. And can we? We could. Is it ideal? It isn't, but the answer is yes, you could go a bigger police car.
$50,000 is a lot of money. We can go 1 year without.
So, Bob, would you go into why we chose not to go without another vehicle? Or would you like me to?
I'll let you,
So normally we like to have another vehicle because our vehicles are driven all of the time. If we go without another vehicle, we won't have that. So one of our vehicles failed this year. And so let's say one of our officers is in an accident, they're hit, we don't have another vehicle. So we won't have one, to put an officer on the street. So 50,000 is a lot, but we do need to have a vehicle so that if something happens or one needs to go in and get repaired or maintenance or it blows up like the other one with the transmission we last bought,
It was an engine.
an engine. That we can actually have one for officer, because otherwise we've got a patrol officer walking around, writing tickets. Walking the beat.
Is that $50,000 offset by the anticipated sale of old vehicles,
Partially, we are anticipating at least $25,000. We're cleaning up some of our old cars to get them sold
And you,
soon.
yeah, and you see that up in the revenue for this fund, under line item 47700.
I just want to point out that, deferral of expenses can be a very slippery slope. So if we say, let's put this vehicle off till next year, well, the next year we need to buy two to get caught up. And so the next year we say, let's put it off a year. Now we're in 3 vehicles, we're at 150,000. And it's not like our fiscal picture is dramatically improving, that suddenly we're gonna get all this revenue coming in from property taxes. So I just want to point out, having some historical knowledge there, that deferring things will catch up with you down
Thank you, Smitty. Next section is the Information Services Equipment Fund. That's on page 84. There'll be, Mr. Kessler.
Actually, we skipped.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, on page 83, and this will be super quick, because all I gotta tell you is we just have to include this page by Oregon budget law. We've closed this fund effective this year, but we have to show it for information purposes. So now we can go to page 84. Sorry.
Mr. Kessler?
Yes. So this is essentially the same thing that Rob just described. We're closing out this fund. We used to track all of our software subscriptions and computer purchases in this fund. But now since we're doing direct cost allocation, you'll see it in the other budgets.
Okay. Next section is on page 85. That's the Capital Projects Fund with Mr. Fisher.
Capital Projects Fund is a clearinghouse for street projects predominantly. In the budget this year, we anticipated that we were going to be doing work on Fifth Street Safe Routes to School, which we have a grant for. There's a potential that we're going to get a grant for the Fulton Main Signal and the Chestnut Street Bridge. So we've put funds in there in the state grant revenue line item. When those revenues do come in, then we can start the projects. Very similar to what we were talking about with the 7th Street Signal project. There was an increase in the beginning fund balance, and that was because we received in this fiscal year an ODOT reimbursement for the work that we did on the F Street Bridge. So that was closing the paperwork, closing out the project. We got our reimbursement back. So I only have 3 projects. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. Next, we have the Debt Services Fund.
Okay, so the general obligation bonds, so we budgeted that we show payments that are scheduled to be paid. Property taxes cover debt payments and provide an ending balance that will cover the first interest payment for year 25-26. And then the outstanding balance is $2.94 million. Any questions?
Okay. Next is Monmouth Independence Network Debt Fund.
Okay, so the Minnet, so you budget money received from Minnet and the principal and interest payments on the bonds. Outstanding balance on the bonds is $7.865 million. Minnet is making their payments to the city for the note. Any questions?
For the note receivable, that part.
Yes.
Okay, next, on page 90, we've got the Special Assessment Fund.
Okay, so the city borrowed money to pay for improvements that we charge back to the property owners that benefit. Back to the property owners that benefit from those projects. So the loan was paid off in 23-24, so there are no budget expenditures. And then there's a remaining balance that are being collected that haven't been, or that have been budgeted. And then any questions? Thank you.
All right, so Mr. Moody, you've got the urban renewal.
Yeah, so, basically, this is gonna serve as your presentation both for the city, the urban renewal funds in the city, and we'll have an urban renewal meeting immediately following. For the urban renewal projects fund, again, monies come into this fund from property taxes and from property taxes, duh. And then those monies are used to repay the loans to other funds within the city. So that there were several interfund loans in the past to help fund projects for urban renewal. This fund is basically collecting the money from the tax increment and using it to pay the city back on those loans. The debt service fund on the next page, the urban renewal debt service fund, is kind of the same story again, where the debt service fund collects property taxes for its half of the debt on the urban renewal projects. And then you'll see at the bottom or down lower in the sources section, the amounts coming from general fund, sewer fund, water fund. This year, there weren't any amounts needed to be transferred from the general fund because there was sufficient beginning balance already to cover the debt service this year. So, and then we budget the principal and interest payments on the debt.
You might have answered this question already, but on page 92, under 880, 0 contingency, there is no line item for the 2024 contingency of $1.027 million. What happened to that money?
Page
92,
Page 92.
under estimated year end for the fiscal year 23-24, there's a dash there where the money was adopted and budgeted, and then there was no money left at the end of the year.
That's because you can't actually spend contingency.
So that line item will always be blank.
In terms of estimated actuals or actual amount spent, it'll always be zero.
So
If you look over to the columns for 21-22 and 22-23, those also had amounts that were budgeted in those years. But there, you can't spend contingency. It's sort of a holding place that in a perfect world becomes your beginning balance the next year.
Any other questions?
That brings us to the end of our department and fund presentations.
Okay. So next, we're gonna move on to the hearings. First, we're gonna start with Mr. Moody doing the proposed use of state revenue sharing.
So, do you want to open the hearing and then do a staff report, or do a staff report and then open it? I don't know how that works.
Just declare a hearing open and let the staff report open it and anybody else may make a comment. So just say,
Okay.
I open the hearing.
I open the hearing.
Okay, so in terms of why we have to have this hearing, it's part of state law and part of work in local budget law that we have to declare ourselves, one, eligible to receive state shared revenues, and we are eligible by virtue that we provide police protection services and water and sewer utility services. That's three of, there's a number of criteria that you can select from that make you eligible. Those are our three. So then we also have to declare that how we're going to use those monies. Those monies come into the general fund and are used to fund general government services like police. That concludes the staff report. I guess, I don't know if there are any questions or anybody else wants to speak before we close the hearing.
Okay, I would like to open it up to the community. If someone else has something that they would like to say, they can come up to the podium and you'll have 3 minutes.
This is for public comment on the whole budget in general or
Yes.
for this?
No, this is just on state shared revenue.
That's coming up.
Okay.
Okay.
Gotta have myself. All right, I close the hearing.
And now you can open a hearing on
Now I open a hearing for
the budget.
the budget committee, for public discussion.
Do I actually need to go up to the podium for
No,
that?
you can take it right from there. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Erin McIntosh, strictly as a community member resident, in the, Pioneer Hill Edition, South Fourth Street area, drastically affected by the neighborhood, the pool closing down, Pioneer Hill being closed. That whole neighborhood has become a wasteland, looks like a storage area. It's sad and neglected and forgotten about. My passion project is the pool. We're not talking about funding the pool this go around. It is not, the pool itself is not gonna exist as it is now. It is going to be back, I hope. I'm working very, very hard to make that happen. We need to do the Parks Master Plan to get the community input on how we're doing that. That was in part of the budget, was doing the master plan. I want to reiterate, as you guys are helping make decisions and what to cut and what not to cut, and you know, what the hard decisions need to be made. That Independence, by our value plan, 2040 vision that our community participated in, that we are a small town. And so when you were talking about being shovel ready for improvements and growth and bringing more stuff in, you have to have services and other housing and all these other things that stacking us in like cordwood, and we don't even really have that many low density areas left. So we are a small town, we want to be a small town. Please keep that in mind. And please don't refer to the pool as surplus property. Made me a little upset about that one. That was the last comment, whatever. We're not. Whew, okay, that's fine. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much. Any other comments from the community? Okay, next we're gonna go on to, sorry, okay, I close the hearing for the public comments. And now we want to move on to the written testimony received and distributed. Okay. Or, sorry, John Connolly.
I think everybody's received, I think that Karen distributed that to, I think, all the written comments were distributed.
Okay.
Is that correct? So everybody has all of them. So.
All right, and we get to the part where we open up discussion for our approval of the committee budget. Is that my motion to approve the budget for 2024?
I'm thinking y'all are gonna dialogue, right?
Right?
When do we make motions to change the budget?
Now,
Okay. So,
I mean, so you have a motion, sorry, this can go, it's pretty free form from this point for you all. You can discuss, you can make a motion, second, have discussion, and then act, but when a motion is made, you'll want to make sure that you move through those steps. Okay, sorry.
well, I
So
know,
if I might suggest, I stepped on you, is that
no,
okay?
you're great.
It might be helpful, and I'm looking to my colleagues to the left, to just kind of an open discussion just about what people are thinking, and then we can get into more specifics. Does that sound like a helpful way?
I think, Mayor, as long as the budget committee is comfortable with that, that certainly sounds like a good way to move forward with the budget discussions.
Then people, my thought being here is that then people get a chance to just kind of talk a little bit. We've all had to be, most of us have been pretty quiet for a while, and then just feelings on different kinds of things. And then after we've had a chance to just yap for a while, then we can get into specific recommendations. I mean,
Can we take a bathroom break before?
Yeah. Sure.
Yes. We'll take, yes, we'll take a 10-minute break.
We're not even done. Sorry.
Okay, we're live.
All right, welcome back. Mr. Moody has some things that he wanted to put out.
So committee member Roden, we were able to get some of that information on the library, thanks to Patrick, pulling up some information that he had access to. So in terms of our rank, it's not exactly the question you were asking for, but it's relevant. So looking at per capita rankings for our library versus others in the state, our funding, we rank 60th out of 136. So again, right about in the middle where I thought we were. In
Can I
terms
ask a
of
question on that? Because I don't understand what you mean. 60th out of,
136 libraries in the state.
that doesn't, that's.
So
like spending.
59 people or 59 libraries get more funding per resident than us and.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so it's
I understand.
a per capita. It is
Per capita.
Yeah.
person.
Sorry, yeah. And then expenditures per capita per staff is, we rank 45th out of 136. Per capita for our collection, 80th out of 136. And per capita expenditures overall, 59th out of 136.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick.
Okay, at this point, we wanted to open up discussion for the committee members. Go ahead.
Okay, so I have kind of a series of questions, but they're all related. Who is responsible for making the decision to impose a fee on the independent events? Whether for everybody or non-residents, or like who's responsible, which body is responsible for making that decision?
So, that would be something. How did we, I need to ask a question of staff. How did we make the decision for it to be free? Was that a policymaker decision or was that a staff decision at the time? Because it depends. If the policy, the city council made that determination that it was going to be free, then we would have to go back to that body and ask them. If it was at the staff level, then we would not have to go to council, although I think it probably would go to.
Yeah, honestly, I'd like to point to the council board because, I don't believe that there was a formal decision or any type of thing like that that was made to say, we will not charge a fee for summer series. I think it was just sort of it was talked about generally and kind of decided that way. It was really an official decision.
Right.
So the council made a decision to not charge fees for the museum. And the Independent States Commission chose to make decisions about fees for that. So I think it's gonna be varied.
So for all of our summer events, including Indie Days, here's my thought process. If we could charge a fee for all of those summer events this year, for non-residents would be my preference. Would that be enough to offset having to charge all of the water accounts an additional $27 per month? And I know that takes a much bigger conversation with like looking at the actual numbers of what that would be.
I'm not prepared to answer that at this point. We could try and put together some estimates, but I don't know. Because it would depend on the number, it would depend on estimating the number of attendees and what that fee would be. And then whether or not it would equate to the $510,000 or the $300,000 or whatever it was that went into.
Or even limiting the burden on the households here. Because I just want to say again, I'm
But
very
again,
concerned with. like,
understand they're in different funds.
So it wouldn't affect it much.
So the T&E, the Tourism and Events Fund is where all of those events are and where that revenue goes. It doesn't go to the general fund.
So the revenue has to stay there.
But we wouldn't be spending from the general fund.
We wouldn't be spending
Right, and that's where we'd be
$125,000.
But over the long term, it would be tourism and events. Because remember, we got all the different buckets, right? And the general fund, so when we talk about the general fund, the main departments in the general fund are library, museum, parks, and some administration, right? And
And the police.
and police, I forgot the police, our largest. It's been a long day. I was like, yeah, forget me, just forget me. And the police. And then tourism and events has a different revenue stream and different uses. Completely different bucket from general fund. Water and sewer and streets, all the same. They're separate, we use them separate. And so if we increase the water rate, we could not use that for our police. Unless our police were doing something for the water, unless Bob's over there running the water treatment plant. Right? Then we could take a portion of his salary for the general fund. And that is what we.
He's shaking his head.
He's retiring in December. And that's kind of what we've done. If you look at that, what page is that allocation? On page 97, that's kind of what we've done, right? Any person that has touched a fund outside, like, I'm a good example because I touch all funds. So I'm 15% admin, which is the general. But a large part of what I do is transportation, sewer, water, a little bit less storm. And that's because we have huge infrastructure projects that I'm constantly working to try and fund. So, it's really just these things in the general fund that will affect that shortfall that we're.
Is that all? I'd like to ask a question that comes at it a different direction. Let's say that in, for instance, the tourism and event fund, it says transfers in $125,756. Is that transfer in from the general fund?
Yes.
So if we don't transfer money into a fund that is set up in the budget here, that means there's more money in the general fund that could go elsewhere.
You are correct.
Okay.
And the other thing, and that reminds me, the general fund, that money can go anywhere. We just don't have any of it, but it can go anywhere. You can give it to anyone. You can give it to water or sewer or T&E. It's just that.
Well, that makes sense, and so it wouldn't cover the full 500,000 that you're projecting from the $27 fee. But I think it's still worth a discussion if that's something that can be implemented, because if we can cancel out that $125,000 that we're transferring from the general fund into tourism and events.
That's a quarter of the
Beneficial.
500 and some.
Yeah,
thousand,
it's really beneficial for.
I think it's worth crunching the numbers, but I think if we decide that we're gonna have to ask people to show IDs and whatnot, we have to socialize that. That has to be, we have to get that information out to the community. We're gonna turn people away because they're not gonna have their IDs. It's gonna take a while for it to catch on and everything.
Yeah, that's why I said IDs or water bills.
Yeah, well, whatever they bring, they're gonna have to know they have to bring it. And so I think just by implementing something like that, we're going to reduce attendance. So we're not gonna have the attendance we have today with 3 for sure. But I think it's worth crunching the numbers.
How does like Dallas Quad do it? I haven't been there forever, because you said they charge Dallas residents less and other more. Is it this honor system?
No, they ask for your ID.
Okay, I don't know, I haven't been there.
I mean, it can happen, and I think what she's saying with the water bill, not that I'm speaking for you, that's on all of our phones. So everybody always has a phone on that.
That is, so, just from a logistics standpoint, you talk about having like staff that with like a crush of people.
Then we have less people.
No, I'm just saying, like, from the aquatic center, it makes more
And
sense.
less revenue.
Budget committee members, if I may, no, you're doing great and we love this conversation, but it is a little hard to track. So what I'm gonna ask you to do is when you have a question, put your card like this. And then the chair will call on you.
Or on the floor.
And then you will put your card back down. And we'll try and go in order. I'll try and track that, but please give me some grace if I mess up. Who goes first? Councilor Schwartzberg first.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
A question about, 4th of July, it used to be that they were free, or same as summer series, it's donation. And then recently they've gone to invoicing system. Did we notice a big drop in attendance when we went to that invoicing system?
I think that would be a Sean answer.
I'd say the short answer is no. Although honestly, before we did raises, we didn't have a great way to measure.
Okay. Wondering if we could implement a similar, system for the concert nights, maybe not the movie nights, the concert nights, where you need to buy a bracelet, and maybe there's a discount, or maybe you show your water bill and you can get a certain number of free ones or something from City Hall or certain locations as a way of maybe offsetting local versus not.
But there's a level of effort that the city staff doesn't have now. They don't sell tickets.
Not a question.
Series. And part of the issue is, I'm sorry. I don't do well with directions. Okay, and so that would be the staff taking on another level of effort. That I don't know if the staff can do that. I know how much the staff is involved in indie days. I don't know how much the staff is involved in the summer series.
Councilor Mott?
Yes, you mentioned the bracelets. What is the cost of the bracelet? And does it get you into both hometown fireworks and the big show?
No, they're even
So they're different.
$5 each.
$5 each for hometown and then for the 4th of July.
Okay, and do we
different
have
colors.
any figures from, for instance, last year on how many bracelets were sold?
We do, I don't have the information with me right now. Sure. Okay.
I'm just
Unless John
wondering-
does. I don't have it. I don't have it off the top of my head.
That was like 25,000
I can't remember.
each day.
Okay, because I know the fireworks shows, the big one is somewhere between 30 and 35,000, and the smaller one is between 15 and 18, something like that. I'm trying to gauge how much difference it would make if we bumped it by like $1 for the bracelets.
I have a quick clarification over here. That decision was made by Indie the commission themselves to determine how much that fee was gonna be, as a commission by city council.
Okay,
Just for clarification.
thank you, Bob.
Councilor Roder?
I was gonna say lots of things, but when it comes to effort by people, if we're asking people in town to pay more, then we have to put forth the effort we can, wherever we can, to reduce fees and costs for the people that live here. I am greatly concerned that, for the burden that people are suffering right now with our economy right now, inflation is high. It's just like what the example you gave us in the beginning, every household is struggling with these things. So I feel like this budget, we really need to take a hard, deep look at this budget and see what we can do so that we are not nickeling and diming people to death. And I feel like that's what we're doing, and we can't do that. As soon as we raise taxes, we slow growth, but we also slow growth in our families, our local businesses. We make it, when our families struggle, our local businesses struggle. And I know the federal government has done its absolute best to slow inflation, but we're all still feeling the cost of it. I know many families who cannot put forward food on their table, and now we're asking them to increase their water bill again, or utility bill again. It's hard for me to do that unless we look at this budget really, really hard and make all the cuts we possibly can, because we're leaving people with less money, which means we're leaving kids with less food, less clothes, less opportunity to succeed in school. And I feel like we're killing our local economy. And so, and I don't mean to hurt anybody's feelings when I look at cutting budgets, because I feel like even after this is all over, I can still eat dinner in one of you. But we have to do more. We have to go to every effort we can to make sure that people aren't hurt by this. That's what I'm.
Thank you, Councilor Roder. Councilor Garrison?
Oh, I just had a question about the fees. What are other cities doing fees like this? And where are we at in that cost of that? And then also, have we thought about doing like a usage scale of it? Cause I feel like Arena uses way more water than my house does. So it seems kind of unfair to have Arena only do $27 and my house do 27 as well.
That's what they're putting in there.
We haven't done that analysis yet.
And I want to clarify that the $27 fee is a public safety fee. It has nothing to do with your water.
Okay.
Zero, except that it's on your bill.
Yeah.
That's our collection mechanism.
Well, and also like Arena uses public safety a lot more than my house does.
Yeah.
There's a reason I know me.
That is true.
Yeah, I mean, I don't wanna say that I wanna spend more money on businesses, but.
And then that will, so I'm trying to unpack your question. Yes, other cities are doing fees, and in fact, other cities have been doing fees a lot longer. So their councils put the fees in decades ago. Alex.
I just had a
Sorry, Chair.
So,
We had, Ms. Corey first.
Thank you. I'm not an economist, but I'm looking at the US inflation rates, current US inflation rates in 2022 is 7.5, 2023, 6.4, 2024, 3.1.
I just had a question about, so we talked about 27 a month for this year, going to 10 for following years, presuming that's connected to a levy, or are those, okay, so that's distinct from an operating. Okay,
Correct.
okay, just that.
I'll clarify. So yes, it is $27 for this year.
Yeah,
Goes down to 10, and then we tie it to CPIU West. So it will go up based on inflation. So it could be $10.04 the next year, right? Because that way we don't, we can continue to provide the public services that the community wants based on inflation. So it will adjust a little bit. Then the levy is completely separate.
completely separate, okay, just clarifying.
Yep, completely. So the
So the fee is for,
public safety. It is only for our essential services, like when Rob indicated those things that allow us to collect taxes, there's a list of them. There are essential services and there are non-essential services. On the essential services side, which is why we can collect taxes, there is public safety, sewer, water, and 4 or 5 others. But there isn't streets, what there isn't is parks, museums, libraries. So we have separated the public safety fee as an essential out to a fee, which is that fee will go until the council stops it, right? So our police will be funded, we will have police. The levy is for non-essential things, and that is every 5 years, the community gets to vote on those, what are considered non-essential services. The community gets to vote. If they vote, they go out and they vote and they, am I screwing it up?
No, I have a clarifying comment
Well,
to make when you're done.
Okay, if they go out and they vote, and then we have those services, and if they vote, if they don't go for it, we give them the opportunity to decide. That's the difference.
So I just wanted to make a comment to committee member Sealer or Seiler, I'm sorry. Seiler. You made a comment about essential versus non-essential services at the last meeting. I just wanted to comment that those are defined terms, so that when she's using those terms, they're defined. So it isn't it's not our decision about what's essential, what's.
I don't wanna jump in line. I think we all understand that in this room. I think when we're speaking to our community members and to our neighbors about this, and we're using this lingo, I think it's important that however this goes forward, the surcharge, the levy, I don't see a communications budget in here. If that's gonna be essential, and however these go forward, how we're communicating with our neighbors and our friends, to every point that's been made about the impact on the economy. Now, what would be a 22% Pacific Power rate increase now they're asking for? You know, grants, housing costs are all going up. Regardless of, I mean, inflation is slowing down, but there are a number of other costs that are beyond our control.
Fire department, I don't think it's hit yet.
It hasn't hit the last, and so I just say this and that, however this goes forward, we need to do our part to make sure we're communicating with our friends and neighbors about these costs, because we use these terms, not essential, and we understand the contextual nature. It's not necessarily understood out there, because to some degree, the library is essential. It is the place they go to get to check their email, to check their services, to get services. And so that would be something, that was gonna be one of my questions, and so I would point Carl down to say, is there a comms budget, or have we thought about how we're going to communicate out? Should these move forward out of this, budget and out of this council to recommend to our friends and neighbors that we do a levy and there's a surcharge? That's gonna be an important part of transparency.
Council Court.
Were you looking for an answer?
Not right now.
Okay,
That's fine.
No, I was, no, okay. I sent a question to Rob late this afternoon, so I didn't expect an answer tonight, but hopefully we'll get an answer. I asked him, is there a way to show what today's property tax would be on a $300,000 home had measures 5 for 50 not gone into effect? So that we could tell our neighbors, this is what your taxes would have been, and what's the difference between what we're proposing. So I asked Rob tonight if we could send this question to the county assessor, maybe they could help crunch those numbers and come up with a scenario for us so that we could share that. Because I think that kind of comparison is important.
Councilmember, Christensen was first, I apologize. Sorry, Councilmember Brody.
So there's been a few discussions already about the fee, the 27, like how would we implement it? You know, could it be prorated? Could it go to a different, you know, this or that? My question is kind of procedural for this meeting. If we vote to approve the budget here tonight, how much will that $27 fee as outlined in this budget and the execution of it, its description, its, you know, particulars, how much will that be locked in? Because we're talking about how we might be able to do some finessing here or there, prorating this or that, or, you know, you're saying it's flexible. But if we vote to approve it, how much does that lock it in place so we can't do that with flexibility?
What this budget, if approved as proposed, there's $510,000 in this budget that is attributable to the calculations we did around that $27 a month fee. That's the number that we'll try and hit.
So the 27 is not actually part of the budget, it's just a narrative.
Yeah, the $27 is the means to an end.
Got it, okay, so for my edification, but probably for everybody, that we can kind of maybe take a little bit of a breather and say the execution of 27 could be flexible as long as we meet that 500,000 that we're trying to get, is that right?
The $27 is an estimation of what it will take.
But how we do it could be.
How we do
completely
it is still up for some discussion.
City council, okay.
It was necessary to put
something,
some context to what we're trying.
Okay.
I just think it leaves a taste in our mouths when we talk about inflation being 7% 1 year, 6%, and then, oh, it's only 3% this year. Well, you have to accumulate all those years in our budget. I do. I can't buy things that I used to buy when I go to the grocery store. I can't buy as many eggs as I used to either. So I think it makes us look privileged when we talk in a way that, oh, a 3% inflation doesn't really affect us anymore. I think it's we need to be careful when using that language.
A couple of comments. First of all, I agree with that we can't buy what we used to buy anymore, because I went to the grocery store today and doggone it, there are no more $2 boxes of cereal. About the essential versus non-essential services, the way that I look at it is when the city charter is established, the city makes certain promises to its constituency that they will provide services, which are the basic ones: sewer, water, police. And public works is in there too, but they're relative to other things. And the non-essential services are the ones that we do our best to provide, but it usually needs some kind of citizen engagement to keep things going, whether that's emotional support or financial support. And on the question about what would taxes be now if measure 5 and 50 were not in effect, look at your real market value on your tax return or on your property tax statement, because that's what they would be. It would be based on that. And in my house, it's a difference of $227,000 between assessed value and real market value. And so that means if we didn't have 5 and 50, I would be paying the tax rate on $227,000 more than what I'm paying now. Do I like paying the lesser amount? I sure do. To me, the $27 for the public service fee compared to what I'd be paying on full taxes, that's kind of a, you know, that one's up here and one's down here. Do I like it? No. But I definitely want to preserve those classic services that the cities are to provide. And I want to preserve them with the level of expectation that our community has.
With respect, Councilor Morton, that perspective really only applies to the people that own the homes.
That's correct, and some, and I have many times voted for a sales tax, but it won't pass in this state, not for a long time.
Alex, did you have something you wanted to add earlier?
I'm just trying to clarify to your question about sort of, there's a $510,000 gap in the budget, right, relative to this, right, I mean, just in terms of giving $27 fee. I think we're saying the same thing. I was just trying to clarify that it's like, however you get to the 510.
I was just making sure that the vote didn't block us into a.
Yeah,
to a
right.
mechanism.
Right.
Yeah, and again, we're talking about the budget for this coming fiscal year.
Right.
And I talked to you last year and we talked to you this year, that one of the things we see was we forecast for years going forward.
Right.
Right? And you saw the graph.
Do you,
Absolutely.
do you think the city, the people who live here would get on board more with the levy if we felt the consequences of not passing it earlier than waiting for the levy to fail? If we took the steps now, that would be, if the levy fails, and we took the steps now, I think people might be more prone to vote for it if they knew what was gonna happen. Have we considered just letting the cards land where they will?
So I'll let the committee members comment and then I'll.
I just want to
come in, share
clarify
your
what
way.
you're asking. So you're asking. So we're just basically, don't fund it now to make the budget, to make it work. And then have okay, just clarifying what you're asking.
So we did, sorry, Chair. We did look at those options, from an operational standpoint. Let's say we close the library. And then the levy passes. Well, we now have a closed library. All of my employees gone somewhere else. I lose Miss Jo, I lose Patrick, I lose all my people, and I have this closed boarded up building. The contracts that we have in place for everything, CCRLS, all the things that Patrick does, they're all ended. And for however long that is, 6 months, a year, 2 years, dead noir. If we start trying to then bring it back up, I gotta find a library director and I've gotta find another library aide and I've gotta get, contracts in place and I don't know what that expense would be, but it is difficult to find employees now. I can only imagine how difficult and I'm talking operationally, not policy, right? Totally operational. I cannot even imagine how difficult try and find folks who want to come to work for us after we've shut down our library completely. Because they're gonna worry we're gonna do it again. Okay, so operationally, I understand exactly what you're saying. It would be a very difficult amount.
Yeah, I mean, very similar, I was going to point out that the mobilization costs of getting the shuttered facility back online is very expensive if it's even possible, given staffing and all of that, so bringing it back to the level of service that it was. I think also, this is kind of a little bit more of a comment. I think it's a testament to the city that we're able to have a discussion tonight about keeping services going as we are. Where if you look at Salem, you look at Eugene, you look at some of these other communities that are completely shutting down this year. And so kind of to your question about, do we let people kind of experience the pain of not funding things? I hope that people will read the news and they will understand the impact that's coming to these communities and that they will proactively help support us avoiding that.
Just to add on to that too, if you close the library and the museum, now there's less foot traffic, then that starts to affect other local businesses. So one shuttered window affects another, and then suddenly we have eliminated, the tourism prospects of the town. That as a small business owner, I would like to not see that happen.
If
had a chance to visit with a number of mayors just recently, and guess what we talked about? This, every mayor is dealing with, every mayor, every city council is dealing with the same thing. How do we fund the things that make our city good? Because my opinion is that, yes, there are some places where you have police, water, and sewer. It's not exactly an exciting place to be. And I think that the other things make a difference. So I think the question that we're looking at tonight, we're looking at a budget for the next 12 months. And it's been suggested that we put a public safety fee in of $27 a month for the next 12 months-ish. Ish. And I'm not, start, stop date, we'll figure that. And then $10 a month after that. That will continue, that will allow us to continue our police, our public safety at the current level we're doing it and be in the marketplace that we're currently doing. Is that right?
Yes, and eventually we will be able to add police, but that is a few years out.
That's several years out.
Yes.
Okay, so we've got that. And then we're having some informal conversation about, there's discussion of a levy of some kind to where we'll go to the public. We'll ask them what they want to fund. We'll ask them, do you want to fund libraries, parks, and museums? And people will make a decision. But that's a decision that is coming in the future. But for right now, it's a budget that we have here. And I think the comments that were made, I know staff is scribbling, and there's an understanding, I believe, of attempts to be frugal and effective. They've heard people hear what's being talked about. And I know that there'll be effort to try to do that. But we passed the budget that we have. We recommended the council to go with public safety fee. And, every mayor I talk to, Sean, how much you live in Corvallis? What's on your, what's the fee like on your water bill-ish? Do you remember?
Probably about $30. There's several things on there.
Yeah, and there's a number of different, and if I recall correctly, Kenna was helping me with this in a conversation about how much are the way of fees on the bills.
Yeah, they range, all from cities, they can range anywhere from $5 to $6 to $100. And it's not just a $100 fee, it is, they have storm fees, they have library fees, they have sidewalk fees, they have tree fees, they have all types of other fees. And it varies depending on the city, and it varies depending on what's important to the city, right? We are one of a limited number, though we still don't have any fees on our bill.
So
It ranges.
So to close, sorry, I went on a ways. To close, it's where we have to go. Do we love it? No, but it continues where we are. We'll look at some cost-effective measures to try to save what we can to not incur additional. And the non-parks, libraries, museum, we're gonna have to let the public make a decision whether they're gonna pay for that. Because there's not really another way to really do that long-term. That's not just this 1 year, next year, or the year after. That's we have to take the long view. Thank you very much.
So I just want to mention that, again, 2013, prior to my time on council, I actually chaired a levy committee for this city. And the folks in this town will vote their desires. And we were at a point where to fund our library, parks, and pools, we went out for a levy and it passed overwhelmingly. Jason was there, met his wife on that campaign. So folks do realize that, yes, sometimes we have to step up and pay extra for the things that are important to us.
What was the cost of that one?
Don't recall. I think it was 25 cents a thousand.
That's what I'm thinking. That's the number that comes to my mind.
Right.
Yeah.
I know.
And every one of us walked and talked to our neighbors and, I mean, folks in the community.
I know there are a number of other cities that are $1.79,
Oh, yeah.
$1.89,
Yeah.
you know, in levy, but that's not necessarily the decision we have to make tonight, right?
Correct, because that levy is going to affect our next fiscal year.
Next year, so
That's
we're only,
Understood, I just wanted to take the opportunity with this body assembled that yes, we can pass this budget with, I hope, the flexibility in the fee that Nathan was concerned about. And then later, that's gonna take a whole lot of work.
Committee member Sully?
Thank you. Kind of wanted to follow up on what the mayor was saying about if we just had the basics. I think none of us live in, we just have the basics. I think this is an issue of competing goods. We have a lot of good in this community and we're having to balance one good against another. And how do we do that? And still look around and go, why do we all live here? Why do we come here? Why do we come to this community? Why do we want to stay in this community? And I think I would, thank you, Counselor, for answering the question about when was the last time we had a levy. Because I think that's an important kind of piece of information that we think about building out for another levy and how to do that. And I think your point is we talk to our community members and that's what we have to do. And I think to your point about the values will come out and they will show up. And I think that, but it takes a lot of work. And so just to say in full candor, I'm a little nervous. If we're looking at this levy to be counted in our next budget, we don't have a lot of time for that. We have 2 elections, and if, you're looking at betting on what's a better election to pass a levy, it's coming in 6 months. And so just to say, I'm like, I come from Portland, we never met a levy, we did a lot. I own a property in Portland, I look at that bill and I see all the things we have. Clearly, the people of Portland have clearly spoken to what they are willing to pay for, and that's important. And I think I commend everybody who has sat in these seats and walked these streets and have served in the city to prevent coming here and being here at this point. We've had to have a surcharge and have a levy, who have maintained budgets and done well and served this community and made it what it is. And now we have to decide we want to keep this. And I don't think anybody is thrilled about this. Nobody wants to pay more as we see other costs going up. Nobody wants to have another charge on their property taxes. But if we want to still go to the park, we want to still go down and have a slide, and we want to be able to go to the library and go to the museum, and these are cornerstones of our community. I think, we have to ask the question and just say, I'll speak for myself, say, I will be voting yes on a levy. Should we get it there? I want to be continue, but not remiss in the hard work that will go into getting it passed and our time is moving to get it done. So just, that old mayor said.
We talked about, I think we can all, envision what it means to close the library, what it means to close museums. What does it mean for parks? What's gonna happen with the parks?
Gerald, would you mind answering that? What does it look like when we close our parks?
Well, when you start shutting down the funding for it, you can just imagine the parks going feral. We don't mow, we don't trim bushes.
Do we prevent people from going into them?
That's a policy decision for council, putting a fence up around it. If we don't have the money to maintain the equipment, my guys go out and take it out. So, but that's what you're looking at.
Right, Ethan?
I just wanted to make a kind of a observation, historical note. Last year, when we had this budget committee meeting and the committee voted to pass the budget to make the cuts to the library service hours. One of the outcomes of that meeting was a positive discussion of looking at more revenues to cover these shortfalls, like levies or fees. I remember specifically that we said, well, we can't always cut our way out of everything, so we need to find some additional revenue. So I personally, when I saw the budget, I saw it actually as a direct response to the outcome of the previous year's budget, which to me was, which was good. It looked like the city staff actually, made some good faith efforts to do something we had discussed about in the past. So I just wanted to point that out for, I don't know, I think most people were there, but for anyone who wasn't, or just to remind ourselves that we positively discussed doing this last year.
Councilor Joe?
Okay, so a couple things. I think we were talking about the potential for a school levy bond. The fire department one hasn't hit yet. And then doing this one and then the $27 fee, I think is just too much. It won't just be property owners, it will be renters, because the property owners will pass that on to the renters. I think on the museum, I would like to see a charge for entry. And if not, we may not be able to have the museum open. I do think the $125,756 from general fund to the tourism and events should probably be eliminated. Whatever needs to be cut there. I don't think we should do the $400,000 contingency fund transfer out because that is our emergency fund. I don't see this getting better next year. And again, the implementation of $27 a month on our utility bill, I think is a lot, especially, we already have water rates going up. Let's see, and then as far as the levy goes, I mean, yeah, send that to the voters. I do think, the people should be able to vote on that. But I don't want to pass the budget as is, I guess, so that's my input.
Kate?
Comment on, the difficult situation that we're in. I do think that if we are passing the fee for public safety, we do need to communicate that we are asking other departments to take a look at whether that's generating revenue, like you pointed out, we're passing a fee, but we're also asking the museum to maybe charge $1 per school student or something, coming up with a way to do that. We're looking at having a 2-day 4th of July celebration instead of a 3-day 4th of July celebration cost. I think we need to message that everybody is trying to take a hard look at things and maybe reducing down some of the fun things. I agree that those are the things that make our community the reason why we want to be here, but everybody has to take some measure of contributing to that. And I think, like we said, we're gonna drop one of the concerts to help, cover some of those costs, maybe moving to movie night, whatever that might be. But just messaging that we recognize that we're passing on a public safety cost to people, and at the same time, we're looking at reducing some of the fun stuff as well.
Jessica?
Also to that end, I respect the situation that we're in. It's unavoidable. I respect that we need to come up with that $27 a month. That's unavoidable for us to function at the level that we need to function at. I don't feel comfortable voting on the budget with that being the only option. I wouldn't mind if we've got another meeting scheduled. I would like to see if, for example, a workup of if the fee was only $10 per water account, what could it look like? How could we get that money from somewhere else, whether that's through cuts or whatever? But I don't feel comfortable with this being the only option without having a workup for what would another option be if we're not putting that $27 a month fee on the account holders, the water account holders, like what else could that be?
Mr. Mayor?
I think it's to Kathy.
So I wanted to circle back to Councilor Corr's comment regarding parks and Mr. Fisher's response regarding sort of, feral parks. Presumably that also means that any and all events that we traditionally do in the parks also go away. So if we don't support parks, then 4th of July is gone, music is gone, movies in the park is gone, and then we're back to Karen's comment regarding livability and what is important in our community.
I think think we've heard from lots of folks. I'm prepared to put a motion on the floor, but I don't want to preclude last.
We have 3 more people who want to say something. I have a question about the procedure. I don't know how.
Christensen is next.
So,
I think my question or comment is a procedural one. So Mike, maybe it'll help you, Don. So I just want to clarify again. Are we or are we not, as a committee here tonight, voting on a levy? Because this is what I think all the conversation are. We're not voting on a levy, we're not voting on,
You're voting on.
right,
The fee is a part of the budget as built.
right, just the budget as it is. It's balanced, it's.
What's the total?
With the fee.
With the fee.
With
With
the
the fee, right.
$400,000
But as far as how we do the fee, how we do the levy, what kind of forum could we have that might include maybe more members of the community in an orderly fashion where we could work the details out? Is there anything available? Because right now it just feels like it's just us.
Well, it is, and all the people in the community that were invited to be here as part of public comments.
So this really is just, this is it.
If a vote is made, Rob, would you like to explain? If a vote is made to approve this budget,
Yeah, so I guess first, procedurally, we're doing what is prescribed by local budget law in order to invite and encourage public participation. I gotta tell you, as having done this most of my career with a variety of cities, this is pretty common. As unhappy as that may make you. Not you, but the group, I appreciate that people would like to see more involvement. It very seldom happens, okay? That said, if this group votes to approve the budget, say tonight in some form, the next step then is there is another opportunity in front of the council on June 11th for people to come forward and again have input into that budget.
So are there
Before it's
opportunities? So, and those forums are the opportunities for people to float ideas like, how do we prorate fees? How do we determine like where do those kind of decisions get made?
Those kinds of conversations can happen again at that meeting. But the council's authority to change this budget, once approved by this group, is limited. In that the council cannot increase the budget. They can only decrease it.
Right, because we have the 510,000 we have to meet, right? That's the.
That is a component of this budget.
Right.
I guess maybe for contextual purposes, and this maybe comes to some of committee member Job's comments. I'm really trying to think of how to say this so it doesn't sound like I'm trying to guide the discussion, because that's not my place and I understand that. If, let's say, someone made a motion to amend the budget to reduce the general fund budget by $510,000 in expenditures. Just, that's the direction that we're given. We would, as staff, have to go do that.
And that makes sense to me, because that's standard budget committee.
Correct.
Line item.
Correct.
Of passing and then.
And now I chose that number, it could be any number.
Right, but I think there's been a lot of discussion about how to do the levy, how to do the fees, how do we do it?
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, where do those decisions get made?
That fee again is just a tool that got us to the amounts that are proposed in this budget. If you want to look at it differently, look at it as we increased, or we're proposing an increase in fees and charges revenue in the general fund of $510,000. Simply look at it that way, as opposed to the fee.
and how the fee is done is generally operation. So you
Correct.
tell us, we provided you the $27 because it matched what we needed. You tell us, you go ahead with your $500,000. We figure out Is that $27? Is that $23? What is that, right? So that's an operation. We had that discussion last year. My council hears about all the time, operation versus policy.
Is there an opportunity for that to include input from the community about how that might be?
That's what we're doing.
That's what
tonight.
we're doing tonight.
But the 27 is just public safety.
Just
The $400,000 you need from the emergency fund, that is what is for museum, like the general.
So for clarification, yeah, $400,000 in this budget is a spend down of our contingency, one-time monies that, you know, will
Just to-
take a
just to
while
get
to
through this year.
regenerate.
Right,
Pardon?
just to get through this year.
Just to get through this year.
I don't think that was another outcome of last year's.
Correct.
Well, we specifically talked about that.
Councilor Rogers?
If I want to make motions to amend the budget, is this the appropriate time to?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so,
Dawn, can we just get finished with the questions first, and then come back to you?
absolutely.
Jessica's point. Can staff do the math? If we make it a $10 fund and we reduce Independence Days down to 2 days, what's the dollar figure associated with that? It's not gonna be $510,000, but it's gonna be some part of that.
We have to remember what Sean said, not to interrupt, but Sean was very clear, and I don't want to speak for you, so if I say it wrong, if we start cutting Independence Days and the 4th of July, we may not get the vendors and all the things down that we want, and that is something that's very important to our community.
And,
I have some limits that could potentially change our budget, so we wouldn't have.
and we need to clarify, many of the Independence Days contracts are in place, right? So when we talk about Independence Days, that is in general, and then that would probably affect not next fiscal year, but the fiscal year after next, because we already have contracts in place. So we have adjusted where we could adjust without violating contracts we already have in place.
And
Am I
again,
right?
and again, those are two different funds.
Yeah.
I just want to just say that was my question, is that how much of all of this is already kind of put in place? How many contracts have we signed? How many vendors do we already, have coming in that, so we can make those cuts, but we're really, it's really prospective and not relative to what we're for, so thank you.
Councilor Rogers?
Well, I would just want to come back to my amendments, so whenever it's done.
I have just a quick, so let's say we pass the budget, including Independence Days. They go back to the drawing board, they figure out that there is a way that they can save money. Would that just get then carried forward next year? Okay,
Yes.
so they still have flexibility to go back and sharpen the pencils, if you will, that would help us out next year. Okay.
Anyone proceed real quick?
I'm just ready to make motions if you're ready for the motion. Is everybody done with questions? So I guess just to throw these out here, because I'm thinking about it, that I move that we amend the budget so that we have a sustainable fee and charge for the summer series. That's my first one.
Say that again?
I move to amend the budget so that we charge a fee for the summer series so that we generate revenue for that account.
So may I ask a question? I need a dollar amount for the budget. I mean,
We don't know.
to just say a fee, I don't know what that is. I don't know how to reflect that in the budget.
Okay, so
I'm sorry.
I move that we charge a $5 entry fee for people coming to the summer series.
Second.
Okay,
Is this discussion now?
just, yes, first discussion, then take it to a vote. Go ahead.
Is, when she says summer series, is that movie night and music night or just music night?
Both.
Okay.
Did you have something?
It kind of speaks to Jessica's point of sort of some workups of numbers, I think, before a decision gets made, and to your point, right? So instead of, you were asking for options, so what would a $5 fee look like per each night? What kind of revenue would that generate based on projection, past projections of people showing up or whatever else? I think I agree with you, and just having some it's like A, B, and C, almost options, just
Even
options.
two options.
Yeah, even
Yeah.
two options, and I think that's like, that's what, I think that's exactly what you're getting at too,
Right.
right? With this, and sort of like, what would those projections look like if we implemented a fee on the museum? What kind of, how much would that close the gap? Could you close the gap significantly, et cetera?
And I have three, so that's
So,
just one.
yeah, but hang on, if we can do these one at a time, I
Okay.
really appreciate that.
Kate,
No,
Go,
Let's go
I was just gonna say, roughly speaking, you mentioned 2,000 people a night, and so conservatively, 2,000 people a night times 5 nights, 10,000, $5 a piece is $50,000.
That covers,
That we
That's
could,
something.
we could budget in $50,000 in revenue to the T&E fund, Tourism and Events Fund. Based on that motion, does that fit with your motion?
But I want to make sure that you know that that is the T&E fund, not the general.
yeah, but then we can eliminate what goes to the T&E fund and it goes back to the general fund so that we're not struggling.
So that's what you would, so that would be the offset to that, and then reduce the transfer from the general fund by a like amount.
Yes,
Thank you, I understand the motion,
so then.
thank you. Don't go to the next one yet, we gotta work on this one.
Okay, I want to make sure I have the motion correct. Counselor Roden, or Budget Committee Member Roden, moved to amend the budget to have a $5 entry fee for the summer series, music and movies. Counselor Job seconded.
No,
Well,
well,
Yeah.
yes, I
Yeah,
guess.
the
Yes.
the reflection of that in the budget would be to add $50,000 revenue to the tourism, and I can get you this.
Unless we go with what Alex says and we put this on the table. And you guys look at it, we come back to the next meeting with the actual numbers for it. So what does it actually mean if we do this? And I'm totally fine with putting it on the table and us discussing it and coming back, but that's something that this additional work, we would have to vote on that too. So I'm just trying to look at where we can do this, like.
just to clarify, I think you get it, right, so she wants to throw in, I think not just she, but just like a few of us want to throw in options around.
So you want us to bring back additional information, you're not, so you need to withdraw your.
Well, I don't know if I do or not. The thing is, here's where this is where I'm confused with it. Because if I don't make the motion, then the budget can be passed tonight as is and people will vote on it. And then I don't have a motion on the table. So I either leave this on the table and we vote on it, which we're gonna have to do, or we're gonna vote on the budget.
We have
Okay, so then I'm fine if we agree that we're gonna come back and get
So,
more information.
You can make a motion
To
to
get the
ask
staff
the staff
on
to
board.
prepare certain courses of action.
Is that what?
But a majority of the committee has to vote yes on that.
Okay, so
You
you
have to
would,
decide what those courses of actions are.
if that's what you want to do, you would draw the motion that you have, and then you would make a motion.
Okay, so.
Request more information
Okay, so
of staff.
I will
And then.
withdraw that motion
But
and
before you do that, let me make sure you know, because someone has to second it, and the whole body has to agree to that.
And if they don't, then I
Majority.
can still put it on this.
Majority.
Yeah, the majority.
Yeah,
Right.
Okay, so then I would like to make a motion for staff to come. And I
Okay,
would-
go slow and loud.
I would like to make a motion that staff review the numbers for what a fee would be to charge people for the summer series that would give money back to the general. Okay, so-
I understand.
Okay,
Okay, and then there was more information.
Wait,
That's one.
she needs a second.
Second.
Okay, and now, can we assume that you've withdrawn your motion and your second on amending the budget?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is that okay, Karen? We
Yeah,
can-
but I want to make sure that I understand what her new motion is, so.
So she's at,
Requesting more.
Reviewed, she asked for staff review numbers for what a fee would need to be. And then I didn't understand it.
for the summer series.
Yeah, well, if you're gonna review it, whatever the fee would be appropriate for the summer series.
No, I was gonna use the number she gave initially.
Yeah.
What a fee would need to be to,
Or just a $5 fee.
or what a $5 fee would provide in the way of revenue
Yes.
based on past numbers.
So may I ask a clarifying question? Are the additional motions that you have, going to involve staff making a report back?
They are now.
Okay, and because
we need to
maybe
vote on
that
it.
can become an omnibus motion
Yeah.
with all the,
Oh, and that's fine.
because then all the staff, then we can lump all the staff
That-
requests
that's-
together.
Thank you, Mayor. That's what I was trying to
Okay,
do.
I was just trying to help process.
Thank you. And I,
All right, so, okay,
you want the
so
second?
technically, now if we're going to do that, we had a motion and a second, Karen?
Yep.
So now we have to do the same thing. We have to withdraw the motion in the second, and then we have to do an omnibus.
But if you don't agree with everything I'm saying, can't we do it one at a time then? Because what.
We can do it one at a time.
One at
It's
a
just-
time, because I could mess this all up.
Okay.
Section.
You have a bunch of questions
Yeah.
waiting to be involved in discussion here.
Okay.
All right.
All right,
Start asking people.
all right, so we have a motion and a sorry, Chair, I just stepped right on your shoes.
Nope.
Go ahead.
Are we gonna finish the questions that we have, or are we gonna?
No, we
do this?
Well, we should be in discussion now about the motion.
Kathy had a great idea. You want to say it?
So I know that there are a lot of really amazing ideas around this table. And we can get bogged down with one motion and then another, and then we're never gonna get to idea 14 over here. What I would like to ask is that we have the opportunity to literally go around, share your thoughts, your best cost cutting measures. And then, Rob, don't hate me for this.
Too late.
He already did that.
Okay,
Yeah.
others beat me to it. Good.
Just kidding.
And then that, I think that might give us the potential to maybe look at some alternate budget scenarios. And I know that's a lot of work for you, and so
That's
I-
what
yeah,
I
that'll
get
have
paid to do. That's
come
not
with
the
a
problem.
vote of this body.
Yeah, that's not the problem. Honestly, that's what I get paid to do. Ultimately, we need to boil this down procedurally into one or more motions to amend the proposed budget in a way that we can bring something to you that will ultimately get passed.
And that's why I'm asking if we can go around the room. Because I really strongly suspect, I know there are good ideas around this table. And I guess I'd like to get them out there without card up, card down, here, there, back over there. And
I think we still got some clarification.
May I ask a clarifying question? Am I understanding, Budget Committee Member Martin Millis, that we will go around the room? Each member will provide some type of direction, and then a motion will be made, so we know what we're doing?
yes, because this group would then have to agree to, and that may be to do that, yes. There would have to be a motion and a majority of this body would have to want to move forward with that. So.
Yeah, so we have Marcus first.
So, well, because procedurally, we're just all messed up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I might remind you, there's still a motion in a second.
There is a motion and a second.
Yeah.
Procedure.
And so we've gone completely outside of procedure.
Well, let's just do it, Nathan said. Let's do the procedure.
We
Let's
just
stick to it.
clear the air.
So
Clear the air.
take a vote on
All right.
that motion,
Take a vote on that one.
and then we can
I
start.
thought we were having discussions on
I
the,
think we just did.
before we did the vote.
Did we- did we
People have
discuss?
clarified questions.
Okay, I got it.
Councilor
So,
Ford?
Are we blurring the lines between operational policy when we're talking about assigning fees? Because as I said earlier, the city council made the decision about the museum's fee. So what's the direction there?
That's why I tried to translate your motion into $50,000 in revenue to the fund and $50,000 reduction in that's why I took that there, is to keep it at that level.
I need to get my calculator out then for my next one.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that these questions, the people that have their cards up right now, they're in reference to the motion on the table, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so next is Kate.
So clarifying question again, going back to, we have a budget presented to us. If we pass it as is tonight, basically saying we're authorizing this $27 fee. We're going to trust that operationally you figure out the best way to do that. And also with some direction that hopefully that can include looking at charging a museum fee, looking at what would it take to charge entry to the summer series and trusting that if there's cost savings, it's gonna get rolled over into next year.
You are correct, Councilor, Budget Committee Member Schwartz.
So just because if we adopt this budget tonight as is, it does not mean that work won't continue to fine tune where those cost savings come from.
You're correct. Okay. That is something that both Rob and I are tasked to do as a part of our positions every single day.
Budget Committee Member Garrison.
Forgot what my questions were.
Thank you for your candor.
Tyler.
Clarity as to what, so we have two motions before us that we need to close. We have one motion, so the withdrawal motion. And then we haven't made the motion yet to direct what we're going to direct.
We've made the motion, we haven't voted.
So that makes two motions.
No,
One was withdrawn.
and there's only been one motion, and it was a.
We just have to vote on the withdrawal.
No, you don't have to.
That's correct. They withdrew it. We didn't have to vote.
We should be voting. My procedural habits go up, we should. But that being said, simplicity here. So I just want to be clear, we're voting on that on a motion to request additional information. And to do.
No, that's not the motion we're
That's
voting
not the
on.
motion.
The
Karen,
motion is to that staff review numbers for what a $5 fee would bring in revenue for the summer series.
that is the motion.
That request for additional.
It's purely information,
Yeah.
right?
And so the question then becomes as to what Kathleen said.
Ignore
was-
anything I
Well,
said.
the only thing to say of that, is there more requests that you're going to make for additional information?
Yeah.
Okay, so, okay, just want to be clear as to kind of what we're all gonna be voting on here in a second. So just the one request, and you're gonna make two more, and is this all in service of coming back next week? Yes, okay.
Committee Member, Butter.
So just. I understand why you don't wanna lump all your suggestions together, cause then if people, you can cherry pick, whatever, anyway. If most of us, the majority of us are wanting more information, what if, to speak to what you were saying, instead of us going around the room and trying to share all of our ideas right now, why not in the same way that we submit questions? We can submit recommendations by email by a certain date to be asked to be considered in a possible second scenario workup. Does that make sense?
Yes.
They said in the last committee meeting that if it's a level of work,
Right.
level of work, it has to be the majority of the committee saying do it.
So you have to do it.
Yeah.
Committee,
Yeah, well, I know
Thank
we're doing a motion to.
Council Member Moore.
I
I
wanted
didn't
to
realize-
remind
Sorry,
you that there is already a suggested donation when people come down to the park for the music and movie series. And that needs to be taken into account as to what was received last year, because we're not starting from a zero basis. People are already donating money when they come down to go into the park. And also, that money is often being shared with local nonprofits who help staff the gate because there aren't enough city staff members to do it. So there are some other considerations here, not just going from $0 to $5. There's already money that's coming in. It is already being depended upon by other groups as a fundraising opportunity. So all of that needs to be considered. If we're just going on budget only, you need to back out the income that we made on that from last year before you have a baseline.
Member Porter.
So to that note as well, I think the people that actually work in the city are the ones that best understand the implications of making changes to any one particular line item in the budget. So if, we can say like, oh, well, here's $50,000 for another police car, like my comment, right? I don't fully understand those implications. If I can make that suggestion and then say, is this, if it's feasible, can you look into this? I think we all have ideas, but those people in the back of the room are the ones that are best gonna know how that actually impacts the bigger picture. And then I just want to clarify, I don't know if this is the same question that Kate asked, but in my mind, it's backwards and I don't have a proper answer to this. If we vote on the budget as is, will you be implementing that $27 fee on each utility account?
We will, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes.
Okay, so if we vote yes, this is approved, then that is the direct impact, that $27 fee goes into effect.
Well, it could be adjusted.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
Well,
I know there's another meeting after
A
this,
fee.
but
AP will know, they don't know, they'll find a way
based on
to get to the
the,
number.
$27.
no, it's the 500 and.
It's $510,000.
$510,000 and
Our calculations indicate it would not be higher than that. It would,
Okay.
it could be a bit lower depending, but we gotta come up with that 500.
Councilor Roden?
Oh, I remember what I was gonna say. I was gonna say, we can't get stuck in the mud here with getting, you know, all this. I'm trying to stay focused on one thing at a time, and we keep going back, mixing the levy in with things that aren't supposed to be mixed in with the levy, and I just wanna make sure that those issues are totally separate from what I'm putting forth now. I'm trying to cut that deficit, the $500,000 that we need, so that things aren't so hard on people in Independence, and so that we're doing what Kate said, and not that I'm speaking for her, but that we're all taking a little bit of the hits so that we can still have this great, wonderful place, and we're all showing that we're putting forth the effort. That's my goal in this.
Tying directly onto that, again, the way I see this is we need to direct the city that there's $510,000 that somehow needs to come up with, right? And that's roughly $27. Just because we vote on this budget tonight doesn't mean that they can't still continue to find cost savings throughout the year to reduce that.
correct, Counselor. Budget committee.
But with that, we can't assume that's gonna happen, and we have to. I'll put myself in a corner here. We have to fund police, we have to fund public safety. This isn't one of the non-essential things. So some of the things that I'm trying to look at here could also be long-term effects so that we can continue to have the non-essential things that we want that are important in our budget. I'm trying to look long-term as well, not. That's where I'm at.
I understand, if I may. I understand, Counselor Roden. But I want to be very clear, you can assume that. That is my job. That is Rob's job. That is what you hired me to do. If the direction is to continue to look for cost cutting savings, that is what we will do. You can assume I will do that. That's my job.
But it's my job to do as a counselor.
As I listen to this, I want to go back to something that, Counselor Martin Willis said. And I think one of the difficulties here is that we're all trying to do the right thing. And trying to deal with this is not something folks do every day. I think part of this is a process thing. And so people get a chance to frankly go home and noodleize on this. And I'm gonna recommend not approving the motion. But I understand what the genesis here is, and it's something that Kathy was trying to talk about, is putting all the ideas out on the table. I like the idea of collectively scribbling our ideas for either cuts or income and providing them to staff. And letting staff, and then trying to, with the understandings that we've worked on so far tonight, trying to put it in a form that makes budget sense, to talk Rob Eves. And that we have a chance to go at home and go, okay, I think we should consider this, and this, and ask for the implications of each of those ideas and suggestions. And I'm gonna guess that there's gonna be about 6 or 7 main themes, and there are gonna be variations on that. But I'm gonna guess that our staff can consolidate and put that together and present that to us. Part of this is just process. We just, at least.
Well, only if we vote on it.
Well, let's hold on for a second. We can empower staff, we can decide that that's what we want to do. We can do that. And then we all come back together, they present the consolidated information, and then we can make some decisions. Because I know at least at my house, it takes a while for us to kind of come up with an idea. We kind of got to talk about it for a while. Then we got to go watch some TV and work in the yard and then talk about it some more and then come back. Does that make sense? And I'm looking at staff, did I just make your life unbelievably difficult?
Yes, but it's okay. That's my job.
Okay,
It's all good.
but that's what I'm trying to suggest, because I think it's important for this, and I really liked Kathy's suggestion.
So is there a way to make them, I'm sorry, I interrupted.
We need to withdraw her motion.
Wait, we have to go back to what Shannon said.
Sorry.
Is we have to vote on everything that's before the budget. I could send staff now, you know, the most crazy thing that I think is absolutely brilliant, that it's gonna take you 20 hours to work on, and nobody voted on me to do it, even though I think I'm brilliant. Everybody else here may think I'm the stupidest thing in the world. I mean, the whole point of us voting on each of these is so that we don't overburden you. Is that what you were saying?
That's the reason for that rule.
Right.
Yeah.
In that, we were, sorry, trying to figure out a way around. We have a motion.
Do we have some, let me convince for a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, but.
Yeah. And present the file because it's separate. They're not all.
Okay, so
Hold on,
I think I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I need to withdraw this motion,
Yes.
put a new motion forth that we all come up with our ideas and send them to staff, and then we all vote on that and we're good.
Before that, I call for the question.
Okay.
There we go.
That's it.
But we can discuss whether we want to vote on the question or not. Yeah, we can actually. But I think we're all trying to come up to an agreeable common solution here.
I understand that, and I agree with that part of it. I think it should be a short response window for us to get information to the staff, to give them the longest possible amount of time to work on things. And that we authorize them to group similar ideas together, so they're not having to do point by point on things that are nearly parallel. But I still call for the question because there's an open motion on the floor.
So if I withdraw my motion, we could go on to
That one.
that
You may
motion.
make
Yes.
that
Okay,
motion.
so I will withdraw my motion for
Yeah,
the city, for city staff or staff to,
For the $50,000.
for the $5 fee.
Yeah.
And
Did I withdraw a second? Thank you.
yeah. Second.
So would you like me to put that in the form of a motion?
Let's finish going around the room. We still got,
Well, I was just gonna put forth the motion.
What Marilyn said.
Go ahead, Mary.
Okay. I move to set a date certain for people in this group to send questions to the city staff that are pertinent to cuts or changes to be made into the budget, and give them an opportunity to work up responses to those in order to be prepared to consider the budget again at the next meeting.
Second.
Okay,
that makes sense. Let everybody get down.
but no,
What she said.
because
what she's proposing is offering a window, and I'm just gonna arbitrarily say,
Right.
tomorrow close of business for budget committee members.
We've just set a date certain for. the
A date
budget
certain, and what I'm trying to get at, this is Wednesday. Let's have everything in by close of business Monday.
Oh,
no.
No, too long.
Friday.
Friday. When's the next meeting? When's like a week from
Yeah.
tonight? Okay, close of business tomorrow. I was thinking we had a week and a half or 2 weeks ago.
So the motion is move to have
Budget committee.
Response period.
Just have to, move to have the budget committee members to send questions to staff pertinent to
Cuts and changes.
potential
Budget cuts or alterations.
budget cuts or
Changes,
revenue
changes,
or-
alterations, whatever word you want.
or wasn't it revenue, something about
Yeah, revenues.
revenues,
Yeah, cuts and revenue.
revenues for,
They're gonna look so different.
there was a whole bunch more after that.
Keep going.
Well, and have those questions to the city staff by end of business tomorrow, Thursday, the 2nd of May.
When you are done typing, tell me, Karen.
End of day, when?
2nd of May, Thursday.
May 2nd.
Okay.
All right,
Councilor Morton moved to have the budget committee members send questions to city staff pertinent to potential budget cuts or revenues. And have questions to city staff have these questions to city staff by the end of the day, May 2nd.
I want to clarify that city staff is the city manager.
Yeah, the who staff.
Okay, well,
That way they're not going to everybody.
Okay,
It has to have one clear answer.
And I think it's almost proposals rather than questions.
Yeah.
okay,
okay.
When
thank
you
you.
say end of day, you mean your day like 5 p.m., like the.
Oh, council, if it's my day. we're-
I know, that's what I'm like, if it's my day, it's not gonna be 5, but.
Yeah, close it.
By the
And
time
then-
City Hall closes tomorrow night,
And then to city,
So
to
your
city
email better
manager.
be
Yeah, Rita closes.
by 5.
Arena? Yeah, sure. let's do that.
Close of business on Thursday. Now, I want to also clarify, because you're giving us, this motion is giving us direction, and I need to understand that direction. I'm going to ask, like I did last year, and you gave it to me, and I'm gonna ask you again this year. I'm gonna ask for your trust. Because I'm going to take those, and if there are some that are completely, just, we can't, there's no way, right? There's no way, they are completely not viable.
Get rid of the police department.
Right, right, okay?
well, I did use the phrase to group them appropriately.
I know, but if it's not viable.
Okay,
then I'm
well,
gonna
that's a
put it-
group,
that's a group.
unviable.
I'm gonna put the non-viable over here, and I'm not going to try and ask my staff to spend the time on that, because we don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm gonna ask you to try for me to do that, but those things that are viable, I'm gonna have my staff spend the time on. They only have so many staff and only so many hours. Is that, are you all comfortable with that?
Do we
direction?
expect a revised budget though? Or we just expect a response next week?
I can't revise the
No,
budget without.
It has to be responsive.
Specific motion.
So
Just
next
leave it.
week we can vote on
Just
it.
information.
If we need it.
All right.
Committee member Porter, did you have a clarifying question or something?
Well, I was also gonna say, to part of the verbiage, but like to give staff some discretion as to like what could be answered within the time.
Right.
And that's what she was saying.
Yeah.
And I have a clarifying question. I hesitate to say this. We do have a meeting scheduled next Wednesday, but we also have a meeting scheduled the following Wednesday.
We do, but we may need it, Mayor. I don't wanna not go to a meeting and then have them come back to me again and say, we need more time, and then I run out of.
Okay, well, I was trying to give you, I was trying to give you guys more space.
I understand. that.
Okay, well, I defer.
So then, okay,
Okay, so
and also just procedurally, I don't know that I've had a second on this.
I did.
Okay, thank you.
I have to, thank you, babe.
Okay,
And this doesn't preclude any future motions that
No.
someone like me may want. We need to vote on this now?
Yes, we do.
yeah, so all those in favor say aye.
Can we read it back?
Okay, Go ahead and read it back.
Counselor Morton moved to have the budget committee members send questions to the city manager pertinent to potential budget cuts or revenues, and have these proposals to the city manager by the close of the business day, Thursday, May 2nd.
Was it questions or suggestions?
Make, both words should be proposals, not,
I.
not questions.
Oh, send proposals, okay.
Tips.
Okay, one more time.
Well, if I propose a $5 fee.
Right, they're gonna give you the
Then,
protection.
then you give me the protections.
Yeah.
So you get an answer in form of.
Okay.
response.
Yeah.
Right, so you would send that to me, and then we would run the forecasting, and we would be able
So
to.
Rory, feel
It's
free to
really
talk
just
about this.
formalizing your idea of going around the table.
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say,
Say nay.
okay.
Mr. Chair, it's 9:20 in the evening, and I recommend that we recess into. Did you need to do urban, do we do urban renewal tonight?
I would like to, since there didn't seem to be any questions relative to urban renewal, and it's pretty boilerplate, I would like to move to approve the urban renewal. Okay.
Sorry, great idea.
So then I'll officially move to recess the budget committee until next week, as previously listed, and then we can open the urban renewal meeting.
I'll second.
Hold on.
Okay.
Okay, now,
Wait.
No, okay, we have to
Hold on.
vote.
I'm in a hurry to get
I
home.
know, but
It's all right.
what
All
time
those in
is
favor
it?
say
What
aye.
time is it?
9:18.
All those opposed?
18, and so it was moved by John McCardle and seconded by
Alex Precipice,
to recess.
correct, until,
Next
certain,
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yeah. Okay. And then so the meeting is recessed. Okay, so now we're going to open.
They just opened the meeting. Everybody who's here is here.
Okay, so call to order for the urban renewal meeting. Everyone who was at the last meeting is still here. Okay, officially open.
Now you can make.
I move to approve the Independence Urban Renewal Budget for fiscal year 24-25 as proposed.
Second.
Hold on for a second, please.
Don't we have to open discussion?
There's discussion now.
There's discussion now.
Oh, yeah, open and close hearing.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
Stand by.
All right,
Okay.
you're not on yet.
All right, I'll hold my
Hereby
breath.
open the hearing. Does anyone have anything to say? Okay, I close the hearing.
Hey, now.
Now, again,
Drum roll.
I move to approve the Independence Urban Renewal District budget for fiscal year 24-25 as proposed.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Discussion? Okay.
Now,
Close
I think
discussion.
there's a companion motion to go with that. That says I
Did we
move
get all our
to
votes?
approve.
Did we get all our votes?
Oh, is there more?
It was unanimous, so.
I move to approve that the district levy the maximum incremental tax revenue as provided by state law.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Second.
Alex.
Alex is second. He's getting in the minutes.
Discussion.
Hearing none.
Staying here, none. Moving on. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed?
Opposed.
Oh,
Okay.
Motion passes.
did you get that, Karen?
One opposition.
Yes.
And the third motion for,
So you can actually adjourn the urban renewal.
I move to adjourn the urban renewal budget committee.
Second.
Pick one, Karen.
Discussion?
Just-
Sarah
all those in
Jo?
favor say aye.
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 Opposed?